Good morning. It is 10:20 in the morning, May 2nd, and on Monday. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on what I call scanning, Sqanning. Scanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Scanning, Sqanning. It's a completely made up word. But it references the concept of scanning, as in scanning your body looking for pockets of muscular tension. I haven't done a session in a long time. Part of the reason is because every session is basically the same, and I have a few sessions right now on the Sqanning Facebook page, which you can go to by doing a search for Sqanning, Sqanning, and you can see the sessions there. And a memory came up on Facebook, which is, happens sometimes. And it was a session I'd done 2 years ago for Sqanning right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I had a beard and all that, and I watched a little bit of it, and I was happy to see that the technique, the session had not changed. What I teach basically is the same thing every session, so there's really no need to do new sessions, but sometimes on occasion I'll just touch base. As I said, do these live sessions, so if you have any questions you can type them in and I can answer them, but the technique is the same. One of the things I like about Sqanning is that it is very simple, and it does not need to change. It's a very basic function, a very basic technique for relaxation, which, because of its simplicity, will always work. And you can continue to do it for the rest of your life, as I have committed to doing, and benefit from it without worrying about it shifting or changing or having to keep up with the latest or version or whatever. That's why there's no book, there's no pamphlet, there's no lecture to attend. It's basically a very simple technique. So let's do it again today. Again, it's called Sqanning, Sqanning, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. One of the main reasons I like Sqanning is because it's not logic-based. It's feeling-based. It's based on the physical act of releasing muscular tension. Through that fundamental process, releasing muscular tension, you change your state of being, your state of mind. And so there's no logic to it. You don't need to think about why it works or how it works. You just practice it and trust that it will bring you to a place of relaxation and peace and calm and clarity. Very, very simple technique. So before I start, I'll give you a little bit of the background, as I always do. It's based on the ideas of a man named Thaddeus Golas, Golas, who wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, which I love. And I've read for probably 20, 25 years. I've memorized the book, literally. I just so believe in it. And in it, he talks about the basic functions of the universe being contraction, squeeze your hands together, see what that feels like, and expansion, release. He says basically the entire universe is based on those two processes, contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion, release. So when you've done this, if you've done this with me right now, you can feel basically the fundamental processes of the universe, the fundamental processes on which the entire universe is based. It's so simple, it's ridiculous. But it begins to make sense as you read this book of his, this Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. It's a thin 70-page book. And you begin to see that, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Everything in your life starts to fit into that paradigm. Am I, or is anything I'm looking at or dealing with in a state of contraction or expansion? It's either one or the other. As you'll notice, you can't make a fist and release that fist at the same time. So life vacillates between states of contraction and expansion. We're constantly vacillating between these states. That's life. The bringing of things together, of materials, substances, ideas, intention, and the letting go of those materials, ideas, concepts. We go back and forth. Our very existence is a contraction. Atoms, materials, substances were brought together to form us, human beings. The ideas we form, the identity we take on, our names, our career, our work, these are contractions that were brought together. And when we pass on, we will expand into dust until we reform into something new. So that's everything. So based on that concept, I was able to develop a technique which allowed me to move myself into a state of more greater contraction or expansion, because I began to notice that when I was most unhappy was when I was most contracted. When I began to be obsessed about things or worried or concerned or overthinking things or physically racked with discomfort, I was generally speaking overly contracted. So to bring myself into a state of happiness and joy and clarity, I needed to expand. How? A million ways to expand. Going for a swim, dancing, having sex, laughing, singing, We all know basic things that bring us into a more expanded state that make us happier. But on a very fundamental level, when you're sitting alone by yourself in a room and you're trying to make yourself feel better, how can I just expand just dealing with what I have right here in front of me, in particular my own body? So I noticed that the muscles can either do one of two things: contract, make a fist, or expand, release. Squeeze your hands together, contract, release, expand. Now we have control over that process. So if I could bring myself into a physically, muscularly expanded state, that would influence my very being, and it would in turn bring my mind into a more expanded state, and I could move myself into a place of greater calm and peace and clarity. So I began to experiment with that, and that's how I came up with scanning. So let's get started. I'm going to teach the technique to you. Very, very simple. Practice as much or as little as you like. The more you practice, the better you will get at it. What we're trying to do is move ourselves into an expanded state. Contraction, expansion. When you are overly contracted, you tend to feel unhappy, constricted, limited, closed-minded, fearful, afraid. When you move yourself into a more expanded state, you become more open, available, at peace, calm, accessible, agreeable, all the things that make you feel better. So we do it muscularly. So we'll start with the fundamental steps. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. And on my count, I want you just to release. This is a contracted state, a muscularly contracted state. So you're now going to prove to yourself that you can move yourself just by choice into a more expanded state. 3, 2, 1, and release. Drop your hands to your sides. Take a deep breath. And just sit for a moment. So you just moved yourself into a slightly more expanded state. As I mentioned, you can't contract and expand at the same time. So any amount of expansion moves you into that direction. Once you've started to expand, you've stopped contracting. So you may go back into contraction, but just keep expanding, and you'll see you can ultimately move yourself into a more expanded state. So this is how we start, by becoming aware, by making a conscious choice to move ourselves into a more expanded state through the musculature. We use the muscles. The reason we don't use the mind and logic is because mind and logic are contractions. Thoughts, ideas are contractions. Theories, postulates, books, these are contractions. We're trying to move ourselves into an expanded state. So we use the muscles to guide us. We don't use the thinking process, we use a feeling process. Let's do it again. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. Drop your hands to your sides, take a deep breath. And sit for a moment. Now we're using two other techniques here. We're releasing muscular tension, which is expansive, but we're also taking a deep breath. Breaths are expansive by nature. You expand your lungs. When you contract, you're tight. When you're expanded, you're open. And then we sit in silence, because silence is expansive. Words, intention, thoughts, ideas are contractions. Silence is emptiness, openness. So we take a deep breath and we sit in silence. So these are all the preliminary steps of moving ourselves into a more expanded state. Start to pay attention to how you feel. How do I feel different as I move from a contracted into an expanded state? How do I feel? I always feel more still, more quiet, more calm, more at peace. Sometimes the best thing you can do in life in order to expand is to shut up, stop talking, stop contracting, stop thinking. People say to me, well, how do you stop thinking? That's the problem I have. I can't stop thinking. By putting your full concentration and intention into muscular release, you will see if you put your full concentration into muscular release, you will not be able to think at the same time. You can always go back to thinking, but in that moment when you're letting go of muscular tension, you cannot think. You can't contract and expand at the same time. So again, we're putting our focus into muscular release. Let's do it again. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. Really feel that contraction. That's what it's like when you're contracted, when you're thinking, when you're doing, you have intention. It's good. Contraction is the stuff of life. It's how we get things done. But we need to know that we can, whenever we like, reverse that process and move into an expanded state. So tight, tight, tight. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. Feel that difference? Take a deep, deep breath. One more. And another. And now sit for 30 seconds in absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. Take a deep breath. And just sit for a moment and register how you feel different. It's important to begin to build an awareness of how you feel when you're expanded and how you feel when you're contracted. Why? Because as you begin to understand the difference, you are more readily capable of moving yourself into one or the other state. So frequently when we're in trouble psychologically or emotionally, we feel trapped by our own emotions or thoughts. We can't escape them. But as you begin to realize you have control, that you have the ability to move yourself into a more expanded state, and you know what it feels like, you know that difference, you can take control of that state and actually direct yourself into a more pleasurable, peaceful, calm, still, open place. I can't tell you how often I feel virtually trapped or locked in my own thought processes. And it's only because I've been practicing scanning for so long that I understand on a fundamental level that even if I don't believe it, even if I don't feel it, even if I don't think it will work, if I take a few moments to take some breaths, to release muscular tension, I will begin to move myself into a more expanded state. And at some point, I will break through and release all of those obsessive thoughts. But you have to trust the process of muscular release. That is scanning. So now we're going to take a series of deep breaths. We're going to push this even further. This is the preliminary phase of scanning. We're going to use those breaths to expand us. We're going to use the stillness and silence to bring us out of our contracted state and into a more expanded state. Okay, so this time we're going to take 5 deep breaths, and then we're going to sit for a full minute in absolute stillness and silence. Okay, 5 deep breaths, absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. It's very rare that we actually sit in absolute stillness. So you'll see it takes a little bit of concentration, but that effort, that determination to move yourself out of your contracted state will actually change your state of being. 5 deep breaths, 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. Expand. One more. 60 seconds. Absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. 30 more seconds. Absolute stillness and silence. Deep breath. Again, we're vacillating between contractive and expansive states. If you find yourself overly contracted, one of the best things you can do is stop. Stop contracting. Stop moving. Stop thinking. Be perfectly still and experience what it is to remove yourself from that process. Just that simple act of stillness and silence will start you down the road towards expansion. Now, it's incremental. I call it the incremental release of muscular tension because the expansive process is frequently a very incremental process. It's really important to understand that no matter how small that expansion, it matters. Again, you can't contract and expand at the same time. So even the smallest amount of movement towards expansion is effective and useful. It's cumulative. So as you begin to take yourself further and further down that road, it becomes easier and easier until you reach a point where you're completely relaxed and open. But you have to trust that even the smallest amount, a lot of people tell me, I tried it, it didn't work, I didn't feel any different. Well, give it time, be patient. Take little tiny steps. Stillness, silence. Okay, so that's the preliminary phase. The understanding and awareness of the fact that we move between these two states, contraction and expansion, and that you can bring yourself into that expanded state incrementally. That's the preliminary phase, the breaths, the stillness, and the silence. Now we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, the fundamental core of the technique, and that's actual muscular relaxation. See, the mind is a muscle of sorts. When it wants to think, it contracts to hold on to thoughts, ideas, political beliefs, religious beliefs, identity. These are contractions. We hold on to them. But it's very difficult to control the mind, whereas the muscles are kind of dumb. They can do one of two things: contract or expand. Contract or expand. That's all they can do. So you use the muscles to guide you into a more expanded state. As your body starts to release tension, as you start to physically relax, your mind is affected by that. And your mind begins to relax. And it begins to let go of all those obsessive thoughts and ideas. They float away, and you're left in a clear, relaxed, open state of mind. But we use the muscles to get there. You can't think your way out of a thinking problem. Thinking is contracted. You can't think your way out of it because you're using contractions to try to expand. It doesn't work. But we can control the muscles. You can't necessarily control your thoughts, but you can say to your muscle, release. Make a fist, 3, 2, 1, release. I just did it. Everybody can do that. No matter how bad a state you're in, no matter how contracted you feel, no matter how obsessed you are, and believe me, I get obsessed about things. No matter how obsessed you may become about worries or concerns you have about the world or politics or your life, your health, your relationships, no matter how obsessed you are, you can't necessarily stop thinking about it, but you can always control your muscles. So we use them as the guide. They'll help us get there. And we start with squeeze, release. We start with deep breaths and stillness, and then we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, the actual muscular release of tension. And we do it through physical zones. We break the body into 8 zones so that we can work on these individual areas and build, as I said, this incremental release. They are the face, the top of the head, the back of the head, the neck. That's 4. 5 is the shoulders. 6, the chest, stomach, and waist. 7 is the back down into the pelvis, and 8 is down into the feet. I move through these quickly, but we will go over them now one at a time. What you're going to do is I'm going to direct you to release the muscular tension in a particular area. We start with number 1, the face. The face is easy. You can look in the mirror. You can see it happen. Watch my face. 3, 2, 1, and release. I just let go of all the tension in my face. And the reason I say look in the mirror because it helps. You can see it happen. 3, 2, 1, and release. See that kind of drooping? That's what we want to duplicate and repeat throughout the entire body. And we're going to work incrementally through the body, releasing little bits, incremental amounts of muscular tension until your body starts to give into that process and you completely let go. It can be frustrating. We tend to want to hold on to our contractions. We want to maintain our position, our tension in life. It's what we call keeping it together. So it feels a little scary to let go of whatever position you've taken in life so that you can deal with life. It can feel a little frightening. That's why we do it incrementally. Let go, small amounts at a time. So the face, 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that? It's important that you identify. I felt that. I felt that release. Again, the face, 3, 2, 1, and release. So that sensation of, that's scanning. That is scanning. You've learned it. Now we're going to duplicate that process throughout the entire body. That was zone 1. Let's do it one more time. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. Feel that change? Again, this isn't a thinking process. This physical act of releasing muscular tension will take your entire being into a more expanded state, which will in turn affect your mind, and it will leave it clear and open, at peace, relaxed, available, and calm. Zone 2, the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. Now, some of you may say, I don't know what that feels like to release the tension in the top of my head. It's okay. Many of us are unfamiliar with this process of letting go. We're so used to holding on that it's very strange to let go. That's why you practice. You get better and better at it. Think of a crunched up, wrinkly shirt on the top of your head. And when I say 3, 2, 1, release, you spray some steam on it and it just releases and lets go and droops over the sides of your head. That's release, muscular release. You're going to get better and better at this. You're going to become a connoisseur of muscular release, so that when you feel the need, you can sit down somewhere and start to let go of muscular tension and feel yourself move into this calmer, more relaxed state. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Keeping an eye on the clock because I don't like to go too long. I can talk myself into a hole. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. Whenever you feel an impulse to breathe, take it. That's your body's expanding. Your body is dying to expand. When you feel racked with tension at the end of the day, when you say, God, I need a drink, why? You want a chemical expansion. You want to ingest something that will chemically expand you. You don't think you can do it on your own. You need a drink, you need a pill, you need a massage, you need something. The great thing about scanning is you can do it yourself. You're not dependent on any external process to expand. You know how to do it yourself. You practice through scanning. So breaths are an excellent way Always, always. Stillness and silence. Always, always. Start to familiarize yourself with these techniques and practices and find the time, a few minutes a day, to expand. Zone 3 is the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. Same thing as if you had a tight fabric stretched across your head, and then on my count, it just loosened and let go. Okay? The back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And you can do these in any order you want. You see what we're doing is we're starting to move the body into a more relaxed, expanded state. This is the process I've developed for me. You can find one that works for you. You could spend an entire hour just relaxing the muscles of your face. It doesn't matter. Any amount of expansion, any kind of expansion is moving you into an expanded state. So it just doesn't matter how long you do it, how much you do it, what area you work on, just as long as you're expanding, you're moving in the right direction. Again, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. And note whatever changes you feel occurring. One of the reasons I don't teach this too often in, let's say, a Zoom setting is because people frequently, when they want to learn something, they want information. They want to be doing. And a lot of times the most effective thing you can do in scanning is to do nothing. But that's very strange to people. So you're re-educating yourself with the notion that to achieve something doesn't necessarily mean you have to contract. To achieve something, you might actually succeed better by letting go, doing nothing. We spend 90% of our day contracting, doing, trying to achieve, speaking, taking physical action, emotional, intellectual action. It's true, it's good, it works. But of equal value is the opposite: expansion, doing nothing, withdrawing, pulling back, letting go, being silent, being still, being empty. So that's what we're doing with scanning. So you're studying this process. You're indulging yourself in the opposite of contraction, expansion. You're going to get better and better at it until it's going to become just as much a part of your life as contraction. And you know when you need to expand, you don't feel good. You feel out of balance. You feel uptight. You feel closed off. Your mind is racing. You're obsessed with something. You can't let go of a certain thought or idea. Nothing's working because you're closed yourself off. So you know, and that's why I say the impulse is, I need a drink. I need to do any one of a number of things which make me feel better. Well, usually it's because you need to expand. Okay, let's move into zone 4. That's the shoulders. You're going to let them drop. You know how our shoulders always rise up around our ears and we're tense. So on my count, you're going to let them drop 1 millimeter. 3, 2, 1, and release. Many a times you're not even aware of the kind of tension you're carrying in your body. You're so used to having it that you're not aware how much you're carrying. And so you go, oh my God, I had no idea. Whoa, you'll be surprised. Let that happen. The shoulders, again, 3, 2, 1, and release. There they go. And again, the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and let them go. Take a deep breath. For many people, this technique is just too simple. They want something more complicated. This isn't challenging enough, they think, or it's just, I learned it too easily. How can it work? That is the beauty and challenge of it. There's nothing to it except letting go of muscular tension. There's nothing else you need to know. The trick, the challenge, is getting yourself to do it, to practice. Because there's no immediate payoff. The payoff comes when you finally moved yourself into an expanded state and you're completely seeing the world in a different light. Everything seems different. But the initial process can be very frustrating because it involves letting go. We don't want to let go of control. So it doesn't feel good initially. It feels terrible. I'm losing control. What is this? I can't let go. We're resistant. That's okay. We want to hold on. We want to keep it together. So it doesn't feel instantly pleasurable as opposed to, let's say, having a drink where you feel that, whoa, I feel great. This requires you're taking control of your own sense of being, and it takes a little more patience and discipline, but the payoff is tremendous. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and release. There it goes. From zone 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, 4 was the neck. We skipped the neck. Let's do that real quick. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. The neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. And then into the shoulders. That's zone 5. 3, 2, 1, and release. 3, 2, 1, let them go, and release. All we're doing is releasing muscular tension. 3, 2, 1, and Release, take a deep breath. 15 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Deep breath. So if you're anything like me, you spend a lot of your day thinking about what I need to do next. What I need to do next. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. So the idea of taking a moment of silence and doing absolutely nothing is terrifying. I'm not getting anything done, is the feeling. I'm not getting anything done. I'm, heaven forbid, wasting time. So we've been conditioned to believe that only when we're doing or thinking are we using our time wisely. So what you're doing with scanning is you're training yourself, you're retraining yourself to understand the value of the opposite, doing nothing. Now, I'm not wasting time. This is another way to utilize my time. Because bringing myself into a more expanded state gives me clarity, gives me peace, makes me more available and open to achieving the goals I want to achieve. So it's a very good use of time, but it doesn't feel immediately successful. You don't feel the benefits of that tension that comes with trying to do something, trying to achieve, of working. There's an immediate sense of, I can feel that something's happening. Whereas when you're relaxing and you're expanding, you're letting go of muscular tension, you don't get that rush of contraction. It's a different sort of rush. But you have to trust that letting go will bring you to another successful place of expansion. So initially it can be difficult. I still, after thousands of hours and years of practicing this, still find it hard to start because I don't want to let go of my contracted processes because they make me feel like I'm getting something done. Once I've expanded, I also feel like I'm getting something done. So you have to just keep practicing. Zone 5. Zone 6 is the chest, stomach, in front of the waist. It's like a plate of armor that we carry around to protect ourselves from so many levels. So let go of that. 3, 2, 1, and release. And you may feel an immediate impulse to take a deep breath when you do that because we tend to hold our breath in this area. We protect ourselves. We spend a lot of our day protecting ourselves, muscularly, psychologically, emotionally, keeping our guard up to protect us from pain. So letting go can be frightening. But once you do, your body goes, oh, now's my chance to breathe. I've been holding my breath. I've been depleted. So take those breaths. If you feel the impulse to breathe, take those breaths. Begin to familiarize yourself with that other side of you that wants to be free and open and available and relaxed and breathing and calm and still. Begin to value that part of you as much as you value the things you do to achieve, to do, to try, to make an effort. Also great, but they are of equal value. You want ultimately to be balanced. Contraction, expansion, balanced center. We tend to be overly contracted. Scanning brings us into a more expanded state, which allows us to be balanced. Zone 7 is down the back. We're coming into the home stretch here. We're almost a half an hour. Down the back and into the pelvis. We tend to hold a lot of tension in the pelvic region. It's the area of sexuality and waste elimination, if I might be so blunt. So we tend to be very anxious and fearful about that area. So you'll be surprised sometimes how much physical, muscular tension you hold in that area. So just begin to explore what it feels like to let go of the smallest amount of muscular tension in the pelvic region, down the back and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. Just let go. If your body is clenched, you're letting go of that. If you're holding on, you're letting go of that. If you have a grip on any part of your body, you're letting that go. And take the chance that you won't lose control of your life. You'll still be there. Nothing's going to go away. All your worries and concerns and physical stances and emotional, political stances will be there when you come back. You can afford to let go of them for 30 seconds. You won't disappear. You'll still be here. The pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And we're just touching on these areas. I recommend you practice as frequently as you can or are comfortable with to really begin to explore what it's like to let go of muscular tension throughout your body, any or all parts. Just begin to explore your own ability to release and see what it does for you. Once more, the pelvic area. 3, 2, 1, and release. Now down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet is zone 8. Let go of tension in the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. 15 seconds, absolute stillness and silence, and pay attention in these 15 seconds to any changes you feel as you've moved yourself even 1% into a more expanded state. How do I feel different? How do I feel different? 15 seconds. For me, bringing myself to a place where I feel comfortable in stillness and silence is absolute bliss. In those moments, and I've achieved that in this half hour to a degree, the more you do it, the further you go. But to agree, I would say I've moved maybe 30% into a more expanded state. I'm suddenly much more conscious of my sense of just being. What it feels like to just sit and be in a room, to feel my heart beating, to have the experience of drawing breath into my lungs and then exhaling that breath, to hearing the sounds around me, to feel the air on my skin, to have a moment of peace and quiet where I'm not driven by my thoughts or my intentions, where I'm simply existing and feeling what it is to just be human in a body, in a room, on this planet. It's the most amazing feeling. We don't allow ourselves the opportunity to just experience ourselves as simple creatures. Sometimes because it's scary to feel that. But if we allow ourselves to go to that place at least a couple of times a day, you begin to become more human. You begin to feel your humanity. You begin to feel what it is about you that's wonderful. To be a living, breathing human being. What? It's just crazy how exciting and thrilling and scary, but wonderful it can be. You only get this one pass at it as a human being. So if you could take a few moments here and there to kind of appreciate it, it's really, I guess I could use this word, empowering. Because you start to realize that no matter who or what you are, what you do, what you've achieved, or where you've been, or where you're going, you're really something. Just in the fact that you exist. It's pretty wild. And it kind of gives you a sense of joy. So that's what can happen with expansion. So that's why we work in scanning to move ourselves into a more expanded state through the incremental release of muscular tension. That's what scanning is. The incremental release of muscular tension. That's it. It's going from this, squeeze your hands together, 3, 2, 1 to this, release. So start to familiarize yourself with that feeling. That's all scanning is. It's the practice of incremental muscular release, which in turn brings your mind and your very being into a more expanded, peaceful, calm, joyful state. As I like to say, it's a place we all deserve to be at least once or twice a day. We deserve that. We deserve it. We're good people. We're good. We just need to remind ourselves that we're okay, just as we are. So that's it. That's scanning. Sqanning. It's a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension going from this to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. I try to do these sessions. Well, I was doing them every day, but now I do it less frequently because, as I said, each session is basically the same. You can see any or all of these sessions on the Sqanning Facebook page. I'll leave this one up for a little while on my personal page, and then I'll take it down. But practice at home. Feel free to message me anytime if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk about the technique or share my ideas and feelings about it. And I always end every session with rule number 1, love yourself. That's the basic rule of the universe. Thaddeus Golas talks about love being the most expansive act you can take in the universe because it involves letting go, opening up, becoming permeable, and coming together with everything else around us, merging, being accessible. And only then do we find true peace and joy because we're no longer in conflict with life. We are engaged and embraced and enveloped by life. So love yourself. That's it. See you next time. Have yourself a great day. Take care and bye-bye.